Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a massive shift that is quietly rewriting the rules of the modern economy here in Ireland. We're looking at why that old, reliable idea of a comfortable salary has, well, completely turned on its head. The idea used to be pretty simple, right? You got a decent job, you earned decent money, and you were comfortable. You weren't necessarily rich, but you were secure. Bills got paid, your savings were growing, and maybe you were even planning for a house. But in Ireland right now, something fundamental has shifted. Over the next few minutes, we're going to use the data to unpack exactly how we got here and what it actually means for the average family today.
Let's start with a number, 50,000 euros. Just a few short years ago, this was the absolute gold standard for a solid, comfortable income. It was above average, it was a number that meant a single person or even a small family could really breathe easily. But now it feels incredibly tight. I mean, it's not impossible to live on, of course, but it is undeniably tight. And that exact feeling is the key shift we need to understand today.
So let's dive into the big question. If you're doing everything right, you're progressing in your career, you're earning more cash, why on earth does it feel like you are actually falling behind? It's an incredibly frustrating reality for so many people right now. You haven't suddenly started expecting more, and you're definitely not asking for extreme luxury, yet you feel totally stuck. Well, to understand this, we really have to look at the mechanics of what is happening behind the scenes in our economy.
Section 1. How costs are stacking.
Now, what's really striking here is how brutal the housing market has become. Out of that 50,000 euro salary, you take home roughly 3,200 euros a month after tax. But a 2,000 euro monthly rent in a major Irish city, that is completely normal now, and it instantly devours well over half of your take-home pay. It leaves you with just 1,200 euros. And remember, that's before you bought a single grocery, paid a single utility bill, or covered the transport just to get to the job that pays you that salary. That is your very first major pressure point.
And it doesn't stop at the rent trap. Let's factor in the absolute bare necessities. That weekly shop that used to cost 80 quid, it's now hitting 120 euros. You aren't buying more food. The exact same items simply cost more. On top of that, because Ireland relies so heavily on imported energy, anytime there's a global disruption, like issues in the Strait of Hormuz, bam, it hits your electricity and heating bills almost instantly.
So here is the crucial point to take away from this. These price hikes do not happen in a vacuum. Transport is more expensive. Insurance is more expensive. Basic services are more expensive. They stack up relentlessly, layer by layer. It's this compounding effect that really explains why that quote-unquote good salary just doesn't stretch anymore. The math literally just doesn't allow it to.
Section 2. Wages, tax, and reality.
Now you might be thinking, hold on, haven't wages gone up recently across the board? Well, the reality is we effectively have a split economy right now. Sectors like tech, pharma, and finance, yes, they have seen very strong wage growth. But for almost everyone else, workers are only seeing fairly modest increases. The catch is that everyone, regardless of what sector they work in, is facing the exact same rising costs at the grocery store and the petrol pump.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we call the tax dilution trap. In Ireland's progressive tax system, earning more doesn't automatically mean you are proportionately better off. Think about it. Step 1, you fight hard for a pay raise. Fantastic. But step 2, as you earn more, you cross into higher tax brackets, so the system takes a higher percentage of that new money. You only keep a portion of it. Then, step 3, that smaller, diluted portion of extra income is spent in a high-cost economy where prices are surging. Your hard-earned raise has essentially been eaten twice, first by the tax system and second by inflation.
Because of that tax dilution and the constant cost stacking we just talked about, we actually have to look at a totally new benchmark number, 100,000 euros. Objectively speaking, that is a huge income. It used to be a signal of absolute financial security, like true abundance. But today, if you talk to people earning this in certain parts of Ireland, they'll tell you it no longer signals wealth at all. It really just signals basic stability. By the time you factor in renting, trying to save for a house, paying childcare, and covering transport, that 100K disappears incredibly quickly. Reality has changed, even if our mental expectations of what 100,000 euros means haven't caught up yet.
Section 3. The average Irish family impact.
Obviously, a cost of living squeeze isn't entirely unique to Ireland. But the big takeaway here is how heavily it's amplified by our local structural problems. We have a severely constrained housing supply. We have a massive reliance on imported energy, and our transport infrastructure varies so widely depending on where you live, often forcing families to rely on expensive private cars. Plus, our open economy is heavily influenced by external global forces. So what does that mean? It means global macroeconomic issues become local kitchen table family problems very, very quickly.
If you think about what families actually want, it's pretty simple. Most people aren't asking for a life of luxury. They just want stability. They want to afford their housing, not panic over every single bill, and put a little bit away for the future. But finding any money left over to save has completely flipped from being a natural outcome of having a good job into an active, stressful month-to-month fight. After rent, bills, food, and transport, there is often literally nothing left. Which leads us directly to a vital concept you need to know: financial fragility. Without those savings, families are pushed into a really precarious state. It means just one unexpected cost, like a broken-down car, a medical bill, or a leaking roof, creates immediate massive pressure. And look at the real-world consequence of this. It changes behavior. It forces hyper-cautious spending, and it forces people to delay major life decisions like having children or buying a home simply because they don't have the financial buffer to take the leap.
Section 4. Macro success versus micro squeeze.
So here is the grand paradox of Ireland's current economic situation. On paper, our macroeconomy looks absolutely incredible. We boast strong GDP growth, really high employment levels, and booming corporate activity. Looking from the outside, it is a massive success story. But there is a jarring disconnect with the micro experience right here on the ground. Individuals feel utterly squeezed. Their personal finances are fragile, and they just feel stuck. The national economy can be growing like crazy, while the actual people powering it feel like they're shrinking financially.
Now, I want to be super clear here. None of this means Ireland is fundamentally failing as a nation. Far from it. But it absolutely proves that the balance between national income and individual affordability is completely out of whack. The phrase good salary just doesn't carry the same weight anymore. And that's not because people are doing anything wrong. It's because the system around them has fundamentally changed. The balance between what you earn and what that earning power actually buys you has shifted drastically.
Which brings us to our final thought, and it's a big one. Because if you are doing everything right, working hard, progressing, earning more money, but it still doesn't lead to actually feeling better off, we really have to ask ourselves, is this current trajectory sustainable? If a good salary no longer provides a good life, it forces a much, much bigger conversation about how we structure the cost of living itself. It's a massive challenge, and it's something we all need to be thinking about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.